Hey friends, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. And the subject I want to talk about today was inspired by a video that Alexa Dunn recently uploaded on her channel, which I will leave a link to down in the description box below. The subject of this video was, is Pit Mad dead? Now, if you are like me and you don't know what Pit Mad is, it apparently stands for Pitch Madness, and it is one of the pitching contests on Twitter in which aspiring authors pitch their book and agents or editors who are interested in the pitch like the tweet. Recently, participants in Pit Mad have noticed that there has been a decline in the number of legitimate agents and editors who are taking part in this event, and so that has led them to ask the question, is Pit Mad dead? Now, to be honest, I don't really care that Pit Mad is dying. I've never participated in a pitch event, and I probably never will. What interests me more is the reasons behind why Pit Mad might be dying, so that's what I want to talk about today. One of the reasons is what Alexa Dunn describes in her video as a feeding frenzy phenomenon that happens with these pitching contests. You have all these aspiring authors pitching their book, and these agents and editors are running around snapping up the ones that they think are really good. But inevitably, as with most things in life, there is a small group of very successful, very well-known agents who get the best pitches, and these smaller, less well-known agents are left to fight over whatever remains. Now, on the one hand, I do feel some sympathy with the agents, the smaller agents in this case, because I think that that happens a lot in real life. If you happen to be less well-known and you haven't made a name for yourself yet, you tend to be less successful, or people tend to think less of you. Writers would much rather have the bigger agents represent them. And that's where the agent fatigue comes in a little bit. There are so many manuscripts being snapped up at one time, and the agents have this time constraint put on them of when they have to have the manuscript read by. And if one of the ones that they wanted was snapped up by one of the successful agents, they kind of feel like they don't have a chance and they're not willing to fight for that book. On the other hand, as a writer, I want my agent to show me that they're willing to fight for my book. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of having an agent. Your agent is your book's champion. They're going to champion your book behind the scenes to publishers. They're going to be doing for you behind the scenes what you did in order to get this agent, and that is basically querying it around. And if an agent isn't willing to fight for your book, it doesn't exactly make me feel very confident that they could get me said book deal. Another thing is, agents are apparently expressing some frustration that writers are using them as stepping stones, and that they want to trade agents and pit agents against each other, I guess, to see which one would be the best fit, which one would fight the hardest for their book. And so they're using some agents as stepping stones in order to get a bigger, what they view as better agent. And to be honest, I don't really feel a lot of sympathy for agents in this case, because that's just how life works. A rejection hurts. Welcome to the query trenches. That's what we writers are dealing with all the time. And just like agents want what they view to be the best writers and can reject submissions at their will, it's completely reasonable for writers to then want the best agents, and they can pick whichever one they want. If a bigger agent wants their book and they want that better agent in their mind, they're gonna pick it. That's just how this works. Someone also pointed out in the comments on that video that they had a hard time feeling sorry for agents in this case, because how many manuscripts did these agents probably reject and toss aside without informing the writer that they were rejecting them? And I completely agree with that. I think that's a big problem, and I know that agents are really busy, and that brings me to another point about feeling like there's not enough time and there's too much pressure and they've overworked themselves, they've committed to too many manuscripts. I know agents are busy, especially because most of them probably already have an established client list, unless they're just starting out. These pitches that they're snatching up, these manuscripts that they have to read, probably aren't the only things that they have to do. However, the only person who knows that going in is the agent. The writer cannot possibly know that. And that goes for writers who submit queries during this time as well. They don't know how busy agents are. So the agent is the only one who knows how busy they are. So if you're really booked, maybe don't snatch up so many manuscripts. Only pick ones that you think you can handle, and make sure that you fight for those. Like, don't just grab a whole bunch and then be like, well, I'm never going to get this one. I don't have time for that one. I'll just drop it. I would feel better if they picked ones that they really wanted and were willing to fight for, and they had the time for. But I guess that's dealing with an ideal world. As we already know, that the publishing world really got hit hard by the panini, as some people say. Apparently it still hasn't recovered. Things are still extremely slow, and I don't know how to feel about this, to be honest. How I feel is that we're approaching the 2-year mark of this event coming upon all of our lives, and if you can't figure out how to at least be somewhat efficient, I think you're doing something wrong. I don't expect publishing to get back completely to the point it was before the panini hit, because that's just unreasonable, but for things to still be so slow, I think is kind of ridiculous. I mean, we need to get the wheels rolling here a little bit. It's been 2 years almost. I mean, if that's not enough time to figure this out, there is a problem here. Another thing that you're seeing is agents leaving agencies. They decide that they don't want to be an agent anymore, they want to do something else. Agents are apparently dropping clients, which is a big problem in my opinion. I mean, imagine you've been struggling along this whole time, you finally have an agent, and then they just drop you. Now, what I have seen is that when one agent at an agency leaves, another agent at the agency picks up the writer, which is good. I kind of feel like in this case it's the least the agency can do. But depending on how booked the agency is or how many agents they do or don't have, I can easily see the possibility of a writer just being dropped completely and finding themselves back where they started in the query trenches all over again, which would be just devastating. Another thing I think would be kind of awkward is, I know it's the policy of some agencies when you query an agent that all of the agents at the agency look over your material so that if the agent you actually specifically query decline, any of the other agents can say yes. Not all agencies do that, but the point is that even if they do, the agent that picked you is the one that said yes. And now they're leaving, and you're foisted upon another agent that said no, or at the very least didn't say yes. So you've been working all these months with this other agent and building a relationship with them, and now they're gone, and you're foisted upon this other person over here who didn't even agree to represent your book from the get-go. They may not know a great deal about how your agent was progressing, where you're at, what this book is even about. You basically have to start over from square one, it seems like, just from the outside looking in. And if the agent declined your book initially, I can imagine this being somewhat awkward and a little bit resentful as well. Like, you might not love the fact that the agent didn't accept you, and the agent probably isn't thrilled about having another client foisted upon them because their colleague left. Apparently, querying still works. Querying is still the best, most tried and true way to get an agent, and I think that it should be. I was very pleased in the video to hear that a lot of agents and editors are actually moving away from Twitter because Twitter is just a cesspool. I've never liked the fact that there was this pressure as a writer that you need to have Twitter in order to get things accomplished. So if people are moving away from Twitter, that makes me very happy. But querying, though still the best way to get an agent, is still a mess. I don't expect that it's probably any better than it was before, where you would submit to an agent and hear back, if you heard back, 9 months later. And people are asking, when is this going to get any better? Is this going to get any better? And no one seems to have any answers, but I kind of feel like it is not going to get any better anytime soon. And it does not make me want to re-enter the query trenches again. It really doesn't endear me to coming back. Not gonna lie. Now granted, if I was going to re-enter the query trenches, I would be querying an historical mystery, which is written for adults. I've never queried anything outside of YA, and I think, for the most part, all of the problems that publishing is having right now is worse for YA. YA has become an extremely oversaturated genre. It's huge, it's successful, that's why everybody wants to get in on it, and it seems like every book that comes out is just stamped out of the same cookie-cutter mold as the one that came before. So there are more agents looking for YA books than ever before, and I just think that some of the problems with publishing and querying and agent fatigue and all this drama might be worse in YA than with other genres. I don't know that because I haven't attempted to query anything but YA, but it's just this feeling that I get. And what I'm about to say might be a little bit spicy, but don't get offended. I'm not naming anybody specifically. I'm just stating my personal experience with this, but it has been my experience that there are some agents out there who represent YA books who don't come off as the most professional. There are probably unprofessional agents representing every genre there is, and I think one of the reasons this might be more popular in YA is, like I said, YA is so big. There are more agents representing it than ever before, so the odds are higher that you would get unprofessional agents just because there's so many of them. But again, that doesn't exactly encourage me, because we're told that this is like a business. We as the writers are supposed to be very professional. We're supposed to read all the instructions. We're supposed to do X, Y, Z. And then when you have agents acting unprofessionally, it's not good. But if the reason that querying is so horrible right now is across the board and it's not just affecting YA, then I really hesitate to attempt to get back into this. The more I hear about traditional publishing in general, the less I want to go down that road. That's a subject for a whole other video, but if you watched my video on why I stopped querying temporarily, you know I'm not really a fan of TradPub right now, and the more I learn, the less of a fan I am. I think all the problems that were present in that video are still problems that are present now. And quite frankly, I just think that there's less benefits for me in TradPub than there is in other paths. I really dislike the idea of whether you get accepted in or not being determined by a single person. I know there's lots of agents out there, but it just seems like a huge waste of time to me, especially in something that is so subjective. Like, why would you want the fact that you're admitted into the industry or kept out of it to be decided by a single person? I don't like that at all. I'm still undecided as to whether or not I will attempt to query any of my mysteries. I'm leaning more towards no at the moment, simply because if querying is such a mess right now, it's like, when is it ever not going to be a mess? When are things going to pick up? When are people going to get their act together and do their job? But yeah, that's just my opinion. That's just how I feel about it. I'm sure other people feel differently, but I do think that there are a lot of us writers out there who have been disappointed and burned and, you know, experienced rejection, who are kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to feel sorry for agents when they complain about all this stuff. It's like, it's your job, and if you don't like it, then maybe it's not the job for you. But it's like, welcome to the club, welcome to the rejection, hard work, you know, whatever. It's like, it's really hard to be a writer and get rejection all the time and not get any feedback or anything helpful, and it's just like, okay. For all I know, nobody even reads the stuff I send them in queries. They just, you know, glance at it and say no, because it's not whatever they're looking for, and God only knows what that is. I have, in fact, heard that most agents don't actually read the queries that they receive, which is troubling, because, again, that is your job. At the very least, read the query, read what you're sent, especially because most of them don't ask for that much, as I said, so. But you have no way of knowing if they read it or not, unless they say something specific that kind of proves that they read what you gave them, which, of course, if you just get form letter rejections, you don't get that proof whatsoever. Obviously, if you're still thinking about jumping into the query trenches again, don't do it right now. Don't do it during the holidays. I did that the very first time I queried. That is just not a good idea. Mid-January is, I think, the earliest that agents are encouraging people to query again, so if I was going to do it again, I would be in the spring. I haven't decided yet. I'm still trying to decide that, but let's just say that everything that I continued to hear and everything that I learned in Alexa Dunn's video does not endear me to the idea of returning to the query trenches. So let me know in the comments below what you think about all of this. Have you experienced this struggle trying to either query or publish? Do you have an agent? Have you lost an agent? Are you still trying to get an agent? And do you find your goals or opinions on all of this changing the more that the industry changes itself? Because I know I definitely have. Let me know if you have participated in any of these pitch contests, if you have experienced for yourself this seeming decline in legitimate agents and editors taking part, and what you think could be done to remedy that. That is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. I upload every week, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!